Don't judge a book by its cover. You've heard this, I don't know, probably from your mom or something. I don't know, but it's not bad advice. I'm not sure it really necessarily has to do with books in this case. But I would like to kind of explore what an exercise expert might look like, what they should look like, or maybe how we look at somebody and assume they've got to know what they're talking about. Now this is a tough subject because there are a lot of people who look the part and have lots of real experience and real mistakes that led to experience, and great advice for people of all categories or demographics that are interested in their version of fitness. But we'll get there. Just entertain this for a second. What is this guy a potential expert in? It may not be fitness. It's not fitness. He's an expert in being bald, maybe. Expert in wireframe glasses. Maybe an expert in, I don't know, windbreakers, or movie critic. Thumbs up. What else? How about this? How about he was this guy's trainer? The greatest had this guy not only in his corner, but outside the ring in every sparring match, in every training session, for what, 30 years? So, and with keeping that in mind, was he responsible for Ali's rise? Was he responsible for sustaining being the champ? Was he also responsible for his decline because Ali got old? What was he really responsible for? You see, we could put that any way we wanted to. My point is, does he look like a boxer? Does he look like the person that would create what is arguably the greatest boxer of all time, at least according to the greatest boxer of all time? So this is where this is going. This guy kind of did the same thing. That's not a boxer. That's a professional wrestler from 1930. I'm just kidding, he's not. But I don't know, he doesn't even have any fashion sense really. I'm joking. But my point is the same, that this guy and that guy don't look the same. This guy, arguably in his prime, was amazing, to the point to where HBO was pissed because after 45 seconds the match was over, and how can I sell pay-per-view after that happens 3 times in a row? Whatever. You weren't even alive then, right? So it's just ancient history. But a good lesson, a great lesson. I cannot necessarily hire somebody that looks like that with boxing gloves to be my coach and expect to get very far. I cannot also grab somebody dressed like this, looking like this off the street and say, that's a boxing coach. I bet that guy is too over there, smoking a cigar and whatever he's doing. I don't know. Lots of lessons. This is kind of interesting. This wasn't my idea, but it was a good idea. Let's pull up the top 10 NFL coaches of all time. You know, it's somebody's list, whether it's ESPN's or whomever. But here's this list of somebody's top 10 coaches. And then we pulled up a list that happened to be these guys of the top 10 NFL players of all time. Now, there are none of these players on this coaching list. I'm betting that these coaches were on a player list of some time called They Showed Up and They Played the Game. But they might not have set any records, and they might not have been standouts until they got in this role. It's really interesting, and I'm betting if we went through the top 100 coaches and the top 100 players, I bet there's some overlap. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not making excuses for anything. This is a reality. And where we're going to end up looking at this is I don't see many people recognizing this in our industry. Fitness, weightlifting, whatever, bodybuilding. Sports, it's a reality. So let's keep playing this game, maybe. This guy, what is he? You may recognize him as Will Smith. Joke. There's a movie about him right now. He's the guy that basically changed all of football, or is in the process of it, as things slowly evolve. NFL, high school, collegiate, junior high, probably little league even, right? But he's the one that basically said, hey, we're having an excessively high rate of concussions, and next step, what might we do about this? Realize that the first years he was saying this and had objective evidence, he was dismissed because he wasn't a football player. He wasn't talking about football. he was talking about the brain, which he was an expert in. So what we see on the outside is not always representative of what this person can offer to us in terms of maybe true expertise. This guy, I remember this. I was alive then, and he had to know everything. Well, he didn't know much about calves, but he knew so much stuff about this part, right? That was a joke also that we'll actually get to. If you saw this guy walking around, especially in that suit, somehow it's okay over here. But in that, you'd be like, that guy can't know anything except how to bankrupt California further, maybe. So, might even be the same amount of knowledge. In theory, he might even be wiser in many respects. He might have messed up shoulders from what we think made that guy what he was. That may not have actually been part of the story. That may not have been required in order to look like that. Just another example. This guy is a relatively contemporary. He's a current pro and a really, really bright guy. Really, really intelligent. And evidence of that is he seeks out a variety of sources for whatever they can offer him and how it might improve his career. If it was all about him placing second in the Arnold one year and someone had to look like him, or more importantly, better that year in order to teach him how to become number one, then there was only one guy on the planet that year that could teach him how to be number one at the Arnold ever. And that one guy must, because of his size and his leanness and the judge's point of view on that day, that guy must be the smartest guy in the world about whatever's required in this. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that? If you do, that's fine. You should probably turn off the video right now. That's okay. But this guy comes here and sits through these classes. And there are things that he might learn from this. Things that make him come back, that he finds valuable to his training. Every aspect of his training, I'm not even pretending that. I'm just saying there's a lot of facets to ever attaining something big. So, cool guy. This is really interesting because this is an NBA player. You'd think he was a biker, but maybe he owns one. This is one of the longest standing, currently 19 years as an NBA strength coach. By the way, he comes here for class too. He's a super nice guy. But I don't think he has to be 6'10" to help this guy improve in the specific area. He's not pretending to be a basketball coach. He's not pretending to be a tattoo artist. He's not pretending to be a height coach. He has an expertise. And this guy learns from that and potentially, hopefully, benefits from it. And if people weren't benefiting on that team for the past 2 decades, he wouldn't still have that job. He needs to change his choice of cervical wear. I'm just saying, it looks like maybe he either went to Hawaii or he's trying to sell some elastic tubing that has a little cover over it. I'm not sure. This is a really interesting, you're going to go, well, what is that guy? Actually, I didn't even know. Not my area of even concern or interest. But currently, this guy is said to be, I don't want to argue with you over it, just listen for what we're trying to say here. This guy is currently world record holder, IPF, has broken a lot of records, and you can check him out online, Wayne Sumner. But the big thing is, when you look at this, he goes, man, I could learn so much about powerlifting from him. I could learn about squatting from him. I could learn about headbands from this guy. There's so much, right? Would you consider learning engineering from him? Does this look like an engineer to you? Well, of course he could be an engineer. I know he could be. But when I was told that he was an engineer, I went, he can't be. I had that reaction that we all do. I had that doesn't look like an engineer, because that's the way our brains work. We associate shapes and appearances and all that stuff with very specific things. We stereotype. And I see a lot more breaking of stereotypes than I do actually following them sometimes. So Oh, here's a totally different story. This guy was Mr. Universe and had been easily top 5 in the Olympia for years. I moved to California. I moved there to specifically to work out the original Gold's Gym, the Mecca, because I was thoroughly convinced that when I was interested in bodybuilding, when it was everything to me 35 years ago, that if I moved there, and at that point in time, there were only 2 professional bodybuilders, 2 competitive professional bodybuilders that did not work out at Gold's, and they had both just left and gone back to their respective homes. Lee Haney went back to Atlanta, Rich Gaswari went back to New Jersey, okay? All these guys were still there. And it was a small enough community back then when you were just one of the guys if you were there on a regular basis. It was really, really small. In fact, their #1 source of income as Gold's Gym was selling the t-shirts. I'm not even kidding. And you know, you get to know these guys and they're just normal guys. And so I said, Mike, man, what do you, how many times has someone asked this question of somebody else? What do you do for your arms? And you know what he said to me? He said, nothing. I'm not saying he didn't say anything. I'm saying what he said was, I don't train arms except about 6 weeks before the Olympia. 2 things about that. Number 1, why would I ask him what to do for arms after that? Why would I ask him that? Because he obviously didn't build them necessarily by what he did. Really important lesson. He didn't even care about them. Oh, I get enough arms with my rows and my bench press. Okay, well, then you suck. That's all I could think of, honestly. I mean, it was great, but what do I do with that? Here's the funny thing. He would take advice from anybody. He would sit in the gym, he would work these every day, then he'd try working them twice a week, then he'd try working them heavy, then he'd try working them light, and he would, you know, anything. Rub Vicks Vapor Rub on them and they'll grow. He's like, yeah, I'll try it. This from here down, he was insecure about or wanted to bring it up, whatever the case may be. But it was obvious to him that he couldn't just blow them off and have them look the way he wanted them to look. And in that quest for improvement, he would look to anybody and anything. So is he an expert in bodybuilding, calves, jail, whatever he was an expert in? I'm not saying he wasn't a good guy. I liked him. But there's a lesson there about experts. And you're going, he couldn't be an expert in these, but he could be an expert in these. He worked these all the time and in a variety of different ways, and he didn't do anything for this. What's an expert? So I met this guy, didn't really get to know him, and anyway. And you may not recognize me if you haven't been around very long, but it's really interesting because he had this very specific anatomical feature. We had a crazy delineation between his upper pec and his lower pec. And in this week-long thing that I got to learn from him, where I got to learn from him a little bit, he said, here's how to do inclines. I'm obviously the only person, now I can't do his accent, thankfully, but I'm the only person that knows how to do inclines. Learn this from me. Obviously, pointing to his anatomy, I'm the only person that knows. And I went, oh my God. You see, these sets of experiences, this one and the living in California thing, taught me a couple things. A, what I thought I was going to learn these secrets. Everybody out there did the same thing, but they all looked entirely different. Well, they're all big, parts of them. But their body shape, their body idiosyncrasies were very, very different. But they all, over time, did the same exact stuff. And that doesn't mean that stuff was good or that stuff was bad, but if they all did the same stuff, they should all look exactly the same if those things created differences, and if they were experts in those differences. Some really important stuff to learn from that. And what some people ride on for business purposes, and maybe he actually believed that, while I watched him do inclines just like pretty much everybody else that came that year to this summer-long experience where we got to meet a whole bunch of professionals. So this is interesting to me because I had more questions after winning these trophies about how to work out than certainly any time prior to that. And I didn't teach anything about this stuff back then. I'm not sure I knew much about this stuff back then. In fact, I was so riddled with pain from the things I learned from magazines and stuff that I was pretty sure I didn't know anything. I was pretty sure I wasn't qualified to tell anybody anything. Was I an expert? No. I learned so much after that, primarily due to my pain, much more than my whatever feeble version of size that is given to this day and age. I've had people go, wow, you were really strong. That's a pretty heavy front squat. Maybe so, but I didn't know anything about knees or backs or how to get big or how to grow sideburns. I really didn't know anything, except I liked doing those. It's my favorite exercise, which might lead me to pretend I'm an expert and say that's the best exercise, simply because it worked for me, I enjoyed it, I liked it. Doesn't mean it's remotely good for anybody, although there's value in it, but you learn to see objectively what's inside of it. So 35 years later, I know what is arguably infinitely more than I did then about a lot of things that I wish I knew back then. And I don't know how much would have changed. I honestly don't because of that, except potentially pain, and most importantly, dealing with other people and their idiosyncrasies, because I wasn't even an expert in me, much less anybody else. So this is how much we historically recognize that the true guru, the master of something, the expert, doesn't have to look like the student or the trophy winner. In fact, they often look very different. There's often decades of age difference. There's often, I know it's TV, I know it's a movie, but you know why they chose Burgess Meredith, who was the Penguin originally, get that, to portray his trainer, his wise, crotchety old trainer? Because that's what trainers look like. That's what we respect, at least at one point in time, for their wisdom, what they could offer us. It probably wasn't a mistake that these people were cast in contrast to who they were training. They had to have some personal experience. It is unlikely that if you read the rest of his script that he wrote in one weekend, that Mickey had been a boxer if we were to flesh all this out. But he might have been a more recognized trainer of boxers than he actually was a boxer. So here's this is our current set of experts out there. If you got a bottom, if you got abs, if you've got shoes on while you're posing, whatever the case may be, you can put pictures all over the internet and people go, how did you do that? How did you do that? How did you do that? Here's the deal. I don't know this guy. If he's had those abs or a version of those, if he's always been relatively lean, he has no idea how to expose his abdominal muscles. He has no idea, meaning how to get the fat off of them. Because if you've always been that way, what did you have to do to achieve it? What struggle did you have to go through to achieve it? Often in my classes, when people say, I say, what do you offer as a trainer? What do we sell? And they say results. Sometimes they say expertise. And I'll say, what expertise do you have? How many people do you have that come to you for weight loss, for fat loss, for whatever? And they'll say, oh, that's the majority. And I'll say, awesome. How many of you have lost 50 pounds and nobody raises their hand? Maybe one person raises their hand. Everybody that comes to you is wanting to lose 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 plus pounds. You can read a lot about that. You can study a diet or philosophies on diet or food or whatever you want to call it, eating, etc. But there's a struggle this person is going through, whether there's addiction or self-medication and that kind of stuff, that you are unlikely to know much about because you think it's a matter of these calories and this food when it's a matter of emotions and dopamine for them. Things going on in their brain chemically. Serotonin, whatever. The point is that I'm not dismissing what this guy looks like, and I don't even know what he knows. He might have weighed 300 pounds 2 years ago. I don't know. I'm not dismissing him as much as I'm saying we look at face value. We look at the cover, and we assume a level of knowledge. And not only a knowledge about what he did or didn't do, but that it could help us. And it's a mistake many times. Many, many, many times. So, not only is it valuable to potentially valuable to your client to have experienced the losing of 50 pounds. There's more than that, because evidence has shown over and over and over again that anybody can lose fat, and a considerable amount of it, with any version of a diet. Any version. You can go on the lettuce diet, the onion diet, the mouse shit diet. You can go anything you want to, and if you stick with it, you're liable to lose. The question is it sustainable? So when people come and they often ask, so listen, just give me tell me what I'm supposed to eat and how many calories to eat. Why? Well, that's what's always worked for me. Well, if it worked for you, why are you back here asking for it again? Why are we making the same mistake? I'm not saying it's not a piece of the puzzle, but there's more to that. So I ask my students, the trainers, how many of you lost it more than once? How many of you lost it 10 different ways? Which one was sustainable? Which one was an actual detriment to your body in the process of achieving this goal, and which one was a sustainable, healthy thing? Those are not the same thing. Sometimes reaching a goal is not the best way to reach a goal. Sometimes the most obvious and the most popular are not the best ways. That, by the way, is what helps to define the wisdom of an expert. And sometimes you got to screw up a lot to see that. But you got to be willing to admit that you screwed up and recognize it. So here's a lot of internet experts sitting at home in their bedroom, pontificating on why everything is wrong in the world without any real solutions or understanding of it. So if you think I'm saying that you need to be old like Burgess Meredith in order to be a boxing trainer, I'm not saying that. Experience is valuable. Real experience. Not the 6 months of experience repeated 40 times that you call 20 years of experience, or someone calls 20 years of experience. But really understanding where the failures and pitfalls are in this thing. And the easier the success comes, in all honesty, I think the less experience you have. The less struggle there was for you to attain any level of success in something. The less expertise and the less of an expert you are. So I like this guy, by the way. But so please, I hope you didn't dismiss this from the first picture and go, oh, he's saying you don't have to know anything. It can all be from a book. I'm not saying that. If you really paid attention, you understand the continuum here of true knowledge. It might include some studying. Really might and probably will. True expertise of having tried and failed and tried and failed and learned from that and altered, and see how that needs to be even altered for individuals. It's a blend of those things. So anyway, bottom line, what we're doing right now in calling it a fitness expert, we're judging the book by its cover, dismissing a lot of people that could help us, and giving a lot of people money and worship and guruship that don't deserve it.